thank you. We got close to completing all the development that we plan to do for AU Core Release 2. So that is good news. As we start, what I will do is first do an acknowledgement of country. We want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We acknowledge the first peoples as first scientists, educators, and healers. Our agenda for today, we'll go through some administrative things first, then we will have Heath, Danielle, and Liam take us through some JIRAs. We've got time, I'm hoping we will do. We will have Steve taking us through some testing scenarios that we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks' time, and then we'll wrap up. So looking at where we're at, we are on the 12th of June, which means we have just 2 more sessions where we can go through items for AU Core Release 2 before we go to ballot. So it's important that if you've got things that you need to do or to bring up, that you kind of get them in as soon as possible. We're going through some normative JIRAs today. We've got our Spark testing event happening in Brisbane on the 24th of June. Hopefully, a number of you will be, well, there are a number of you that are turning up for that, so hopefully that will be a good event. Out of the back of that, we hope to get some good feedback and things that maybe we need to quickly put in and change up before we go to ballot on the in August timeframe. So we have got our last date for any kind of changes is the 26th of July, when we're basically done. So we've got the 26th of June, which is a couple of days after the testing event, and also the 10th of July that we can make changes. So it's important that if you have things that you think need to go into Release 2, things that are pressing, then raise them as soon as possible. We're looking to have the ballot running from the period of 11th of August through to the 7th of September. Well, approximate timelines. We'll see how that goes, but that's the thing that we're looking to do. We'll be publishing the ballot snapshot on the 4th of August, and then we'll kick off the ballot process. And for those of you who've been through Release 1, you'll kind of know the runnings as we go and do that. For those of you who are new to it, well, we'll take you through that as we go. Important thing to note is that if you want to be part of the vote for the for Release 2, then you do need to be an HL7 member to enable you to vote. So you need to be a member, and you also need to have a Confluence account, so you can sign up for that. More information on the QR code there. We can also probably paste that into the chat. Let's have a look. How do I get this thing up here? Maybe I should have done it over here. Let's have a look. So here are the key details about being as part of the ballot. So in order to and I'll just paste that in the chat here as well. If you want to know the details of the ballot, so we'll have a notice of intent to ballot on the 29th of June. There's a sign-up period. So during the 6th of July to the 3rd of August, you have the ability to sign up to be part of the ballot process. And it's important that you sign up to be able to do that. We'll publish the ballot on the 4th of August, and then we start voting. after that. So as we mentioned, in order to vote, you must be a current HL7 member, either an individual or an organization. And there are the details of how many votes you get depending on the size of your organization and the type of membership that you have. So it's important to remember that if you want to be part of the process, then please do that. Let me just mute something else over here. Okay. As part of our usual business, we have the approval of minutes for the last meeting, which happened on the 29th of May. I'll just click on that. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to go through that and read the minutes, maybe listen to the replay if you weren't there. Are there any questions or queries that anyone has out of that before we move that we adopt those minutes? No questions or comments? Okay. Well, if that's the case, let's go back to our things. Out of that, there were some actions that need to follow.
Sorry, shall I motion?
Well, I was going to do that, but I was going to do that after I did the actions. I don't know if that's okay practice to do.
Yeah, no, I don't think it matters.
Okay, all good. I don't know if Ruben's on the call, so he had an action to follow up with the ADHA regarding the terminology service.
No, Ruben's not on the call, and I don't think Brett is either. So reporting back on that action will need to be held to next week.
Okay, thank you. And
same for the next one. Yep.
Second one as well. Okay, and then the last one, I think you've done. So we're going to kind of follow that today.
Yes, that's right. That's the JIRAs that I'll be presenting today.
Okay. All right. So given that, I'd like to propose that we kind of accept those minutes. Would anyone like to motion that?
Danielle, I'm happy to motion approval of the minutes last meeting.
Thank you very much. Would someone like to second?
I'm ready to second, Marvin.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to put launch a poll. So please feel free to make your intent known, either affirmative, negative, or abstain. And if you are unable to vote, just put a +1 in the chat or just shout out. Okay, so we have going to close it out in just a moment. Okay, let's end the poll. So plus, I think Danielle, affirmative for Danielle. So that means we have 14 affirmative, 19 abstain, and no negative. So that poll has passed. Thank you. Okay, up and coming news. Our next Connectathon, which is the 1st and 2nd of September, is fully sold out. It's becoming a bit like I don't know, like a Taylor Swift concert for the Connectathons now. They come and they sell out very quickly. If you want to go on the wait list, send an email to events@hl7.com.au and they'll put you on the waiting list. And likewise, if you know that you're not going to be able to attend and you already have a ticket, then please feel free to let them know and they'll allocate your ticket to the next person in line. All right, I think that's all the business that we have to deal with at the moment. And I guess at this point, we will go into our JIRAs. So I don't know, is Heath on the line?
I am.
Cool. Do you want me to show screen or do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, let me share screen.
Okay.
Okay, let me just make sure I'm seeing what's going on.
Yep, I can see your screen now.
Okay, so we've got as part of the last lot of ballot reconciliation, we had a number of deferred items that came out of that, in particular around having specific data types for some of our datetime elements, or should I, or timing related elements in a number of resources. So there is 5 JIRA issues that are pretty much the same principle, and if we focus on procedure for starters, it's where we have a choice of timing data type. So I'll just, if we go into, just getting my screen sorted here, sorry. So looking at this one for starters, this was raised by Brett, where we wanted to have a must support specifically on the performed date type choice. At the moment, we've got must support on the performed X, being the choice of timing for procedure performed. And Brett is suggesting that we do the performed datetime. Now, we had a whole heap of conformance discussions this time last year, and we decided that it was a little bit unclear about what that meant from an obligations perspective to have a particular choice stated as must support. So I've just got another presentation here that I actually prepared last year, and we, as part of those conformance sessions, but it's time to really revisit this again. So this is our current, this is our current profile for procedure performed. So we've got the must support, populate if known, no error on performed X. So that means that for a responder, they need to populate if they have the performed value, but we're not saying whatever type, whatever they have, whether it's a date time, whether it's a period, whether it's a string or an age, it's your choice as what you populate. As a requester, basically your requirement is to no error. But that's a no error on any of those choices. So if you receive a string, you don't error. but that's all your obligation is from a requester perspective. So this proposal, and amongst the other 4 as well on other elements, we're looking to put in a choice, a must support requirement on perform datetime. So what does that actually mean from an obligations perspective? So this is probably, I don't know how we're going to address this, but to think about what this might mean from an obligations perspective, this is kind of what I proposed last year. And I wouldn't get too hung up about the wording or anything along these lines. It's more of a discussion point. But if we did put a must support on an individual choice, data type choice here, being datetime in particular, what does that mean? And what I'm alluding to here is that as a responder, you need to be able to populate. Not just if known, that because we don't, if you, in this particular case, have a period, or you have a string, or you have an age, that you can still provide that if known in that type. But as a responder, you should, in some circumstances, be able to populate the date time. I'm thinking that's what it might mean to put must support on the date time and leaving the others unlabeled or unflagged. And then from a requester side of things, it's still no error. Particularly for that particular date time. Now, for me, that's almost a null statement. You already have to support it now because you have to support all types. And we're actually not strengthening that at all. And the fact is that you're probably just more likely to get these performed in a datetime format, but it really has no additional impact on a requester at all because it's still just without error. So I guess some thoughts and discussion around that. Danielle.
I'm a bit shocked to see the shell able to populate. I know we've both been working on patient summary, and IPS has a should. I can't express strongly enough about how shell able to populate is just not something that we should be doing. Very strongly against that. I think in terms of the original framing of the argument, which, I mean, I can see why that was posed in the original by the reporter, by Brett. I know you've been like, this is, if we put must support on a particular date time and we are encouraging people, this is where we want the ecosystem to go, which might be a should, but I don't think there's any way that we can impose a shall there on a system capability requirement. There are other use cases. I know this has come from AUCDI and an agreement around clinical best practice in these systems, but there are other data within systems. And I think it's very dangerous to be doing that at this stage.
And to be honest, I completely agree. Yep.
Now, the shall no error, I will say we inherit anyway. So the rule in FHIR is all those options like string and that kind of thing, they inherit the no error, like so that even where we put must support on it, it would need to be at least shall no error. I don't think there's any reason to do anything more interesting with that data type. So I guess that probably comes back more to other people on 2 things. One, do we really want to move down the pathway of putting encouragements to the community and use must support to do that? And 2, I think there are some impacts to that for downstream IGs that want to claim conformance, that they then have to declare how they must support that particular data type. And I'm wary at this stage of imposing that kind of burden. So, yeah, I think I find this, I can see an argument for it, but I also find it really concerning.
And I very quickly pulled these slides up from last year. All right, so that's a hangover from last year. So I completely agree with you. I think should is the right level of conformance. And I'm also reading the notes again on the actual disposition that's being proposed here. We're also talking about populate by basically going down the inheritance tree from the populate if known, but incorporating the capable of. So I think it should be should populate would be what I would be. We haven't talked about should, shall, or anything in this disposition at the moment. We've just talked about populate. So I would be strengthening this disposition a little bit to say it's a should.
Well, that's the original. Hang on, what disposition are you talking about? Your slides or what's on the JIRA, which is a deferred disposition, and reconsidering it, we kind of.
I'm talking about the disposition on this. Can you still see my screen?
I can. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is actually, there is a disposition here that says requested, not error. Where is it? Populate, may choose to populate. So yeah, must support populate obligation or similar.
But that's I guess the deferred disposition. This
Yeah,
is
okay.
a
Yep.
proposal for something else. So yeah, I think
Yep.
we can ignore that.
Yep. Okay.
Richard, I think you were next.
The description of for the populator, I can't remember the term now. It's like at the moment, if you've got, if can you show the that slide? Okay, so if you've got at the moment with just must support on performed X, it's a case of if I've got a value for performed, then I'm expected to send it in my choice of format. And this particular proposal could, it's like saying, I've got to be able to send date times, but I don't have to ever send a date time. I could always send periods and strings. But as long as I'm able to occasionally send a date time, as long as I'm able to send a date time, I don't ever have to send a date time. I could always send periods and strings. And that's just a really strange sort of constraint to put on things. I'm not sure that's a useful space to go to. And then the other way is the way that I think Danielle was interpreting this as saying is, well, whatever you've got to translate it to date time. And I think I agree. That's not a space we want to go to for different reasons. I think that's too hard.
I don't expect that at all. If you've got it as a string, then you provide it as a string. But what we're really trying to do, as Danielle was alluding to, is put a suggestion to the community that you should be able to support date time or provide date time if you have it and you're allowed.
So yeah, I find it a strange sort of thing. So if I have internally some of my records have performed as a string and some of my records have performed as a date time, then what sort of behavior do we want? One is send us whatever you've got. Another is only send it if we've actually got it as a date time. Another one is if you've got a string, make sure you translate it to date time if you can, but if you can't, leave it as a string. So there's a range of possible expected behaviors. And I'm not sure that the tool of using must support on a particular data type is a useful way to describe our preferred behavior from systems.
It's a good point. If we want to encourage date times, there are other mechanisms. One way to do it is this one. I think that's what that equates to for me. Like you shall send performed whatever every time you have it, but you should be building the capability to do date times. If you're a fully string system, then we say you should be building the capability for date time. Then that being said, we could literally put that in the profile specific implementation guidance. I've seen that, for example, in other specifications like international patient access, or do a degree in US core, and also specify that in capability statements to say that responders should be supplying performed in date time format.
Yeah.
So we could also do that if we want to encourage this.
Yeah. I think something like that works better because the sorts of things we've got here, there's also the case of period. Let's say my internal system has procedures with periods. Now, does that mean that to comply with this thing, I'm expected to be sending them as date times? That might be a good idea so that it's easier for people who receive it to only process a date time instead of having to get a period and then choose which part of the period they want to use. But that's a way more complicated story than just using must support some particular data types, and possibly something that we don't want to do as a blanket thing in an AU core profile. I'm not sure.
So Richard, why we're actually revisiting this at this point in time is because of the patient summary work.
Yeah,
So,
don't you want to, sorry, but don't you want to encourage them to give you a proper data type?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's as simple as that. Yeah.
And this is the IPS procedure profile, and it's the same for the others that we're got on the agenda as well, in general. And they've got a slice here where I've got a perform date time. I think it's
Sorry, Heath,
effectively the
just
same
make that
thing.
a little bit larger on your screen?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm zooming in on my side. Yeah.
Control plus or something like that.
So they've actually differentials that helpful. No, I'll leave it at that one.
Yeah.
The rendering's a bit weird, right? But basically, what they've done here is got a perform date time here equivalent, and they've gone populate if known. So this is IPS, and we're trying to get some alignment with, I guess, AU core, because effectively patient summary, AUP patient summary procedure will end up having this anyway. So because we are inheriting from IPS, and it's more along the lines of, and you can see it is a should populate if known. Now, I was suggesting as should populate, but I'm more than happy for it just to be populate if known. And that way we've got alignment with IPS. And
that's got to be
we
a
pull
typo.
that back into AU core.
They can't undo shall populate if known, which applies to perform.
Yeah.
So if you've got a date time, you shall populate that if you know it. So I think that's a typo for them.
I agree with you. Yeah.
It's not like you can send more than one data type. You've only got one choice.
Yeah.
Sorry, in an instance, there's only one thing you can send.
Yeah, but I think the tricky thing that I've found the tricky bit is that some users really care about how precise things are, right? And so at least if we have the data type there, then you can choose, hopefully if they haven't converted it from a character string, then it's not 12 noon all the time. But that's life, right? Whatever you got, you have to eat.
I guess a way of reading this is to say that if you've got a performed X, you will populate it. And if you've got a performed X, you should send it as a date time, but you don't have to.
But
so that's a way of reading that.
TSC will undo this. This isn't allowed. We've sought specific advice from this, and they are very clear that the obligations for that actor at the parent element apply to all the slices of it. So they can't undo it.
So you can't use this mechanism to say my preferred data type is that. If you want to say my preferred data type is such and such, you need a different technique.
You can't use shall populate if known at the top element and then should populate if known down below. You could use a different obligation that brings in that has like some
Populate.
other aspect. Yeah.
Populate is, as I originally suggested, it should populate because it's stronger than shall populate if known.
I think that only works because of unhelpful playing between the difference in meaning between populate if known and populate.
Yep, agreed.
I think it would work for syntactic reasons, but not for semantic reasons.
So, and I just want to make a comment on this conversion because that's not what and maybe that's where we need some general guidance around this scenario that around choices. And to be honest, this is why it was deferred, right? This conversation is hard, but we probably need to still say, if you're storing as a string, we don't want you to be trying to convert this into date time. Send us the string because, well, personally, I feel it's dangerous. Any kind of conversion transformation is a risk, and you can do it if you want, but that's your risk. But it's more about what AUCDR is trying to do and say, you really should be trying to store this natively so that you can produce a date time data type, more so in more cases than when you're actually providing some of those others. There are use cases around things like age, there are use cases around period, there are use cases around range, but the string is probably the outlier there where it's just basically that's what systems currently do. And
well, Heath, we
it
got
makes
to
it
kill
hard.
that, right? We have to stop that. And the point, I guess, the other side of it too, of course, is the formatting of the date, right? American versus
No,
British.
No,
that's dealt with, David.
It's like,
We don't need to
so
worry about that.
if you get the source system has to convert it into the data type. It's we don't want that responsibility.
but
Exactly.
let's be careful. This is an interoperability specification. By limiting data quality, you're then limiting the data you share. We're not dealing with, this is not a clinical information system set of requirements that change how data is captured. And AU Core has to be flexible enough and use case inclusive enough to share data that's already been in systems for 10 years.
Yeah, but if the data's been in that system for 10 years and they're pulling it out and giving it to me, I want it in a data type that I can believe that you're going to tell me that that is the correct date, right? We want them to confirm it, not us. How do I know?
But that's the thing, David, like having the risk for me taking a string that could be an American format or Australian format, turning that into a date time is risky, in my opinion, unless you really know that it's always in that particular format. So the fact that you're actually sending it in its original form, for me, is less risky because then it's just display. And you're not going to be able to do calculations and the like against that string. But what we're wanting to put here is a stake in the ground to say, we prefer in Australia for you to actually send us a date time when the use cases are applicable and not some of these other ones. Now, as I said before, things like age, there are use cases where age is recorded and not an actual date time, etc. So we still want to support those use cases.
So just in checking for time, I got Danielle in Landon. Heath, the date thing that we're talking about here, does that apply to all of the other JIRAs that you've got lined up, or
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Like if we can get a decision to move forward on these, I mean, obviously we need to vote on all the others, but it's just effectively a pattern that we're putting in place here, and we would roll it out against the others where we see fit.
Okay. All right. Landon.
Just a quick question for Heath. What is the impact to patient summary if we did kick this AU Core 1 down the road? Is it
Nothing, because we'll inherit it anyway.
inherited
We
anyway?
have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Based on our current principles of patient summary, it will be, I know, irrespective of whether this is the right obligation or not, should populate if known is actually weaker than the shall populate if known on its parent. I think what Danielle and I are saying, we think that's a technical correction that we will have to push back and saying, well, that actually should populate, heading down the hierarchy to be stronger. But it's stronger in one aspect, but weaker in the other one, as in being should rather than a shall.
Yeah.
So is your change to make performer X a should, or is the change to make performer date time a shall?
Exactly. No, sorry. The proposal is to add must support on date time, perform date time, with an obligation of should populate. That is the proposal.
Is that semantically legal?
Yep.
Given that its performer X is shall populate if known.
Because at the moment it is shall populate if known.
Yeah.
And populate is stronger than if known. But it's a should, indicating like it's recommended effectively that you should populate it as date time, but it's not a shall. So
I think this is an obscure way.
Additional.
I think it's an
not
obscure
a
way of
replacement.
saying something that we want to say. It strikes me as
agree.
not a very clear way of saying what we want to say.
Well,
I think there's enough interest in the chat on preferencing and say that we do want people to be doing date times. I think I'm concerned enough about trying to use must support this way that I think that we should add a narrative statement to that effect. That's, I guess, my counter proposal.
So interesting. What other people?
I don't think it solves the problem, but because that narrative statement will have to be pretty much the same thing. But
so do we think we're actually at a point where we can make a decision? Because I think at the moment it's still a bit vague. I think there is enough confusion about, I guess, terminology. Maybe in fact, why don't I put up a poll? I'm going to put up a poll. The question I'm going to ask is, do people feel they sufficiently understand this to make what's the right phrase? Do people sufficiently understand what we're trying to get to in order to make a real poll worthwhile? Or do people want more information or need more information? So I think the question I'm asking is, do people have enough information in order to take a position on this?
Can I make one comment while we're voting? This is additive. It is not a replacement. So you are inheriting the obligation from performed X. It is an additional obligation that you should populate perform date time. I don't know if that helps, and I didn't articulate that very well, and I admit, but it is additive. It is not a replacement of.
So those that have clicked abstain, I'll come to you in a moment, Sanjeet. Those that click abstain, is that because you're still unclear? Because I don't know whether to add up negative and abstain against affirmative. If any, it's
maybe the abstains are people who don't want to vote at the end of it, so they're opting out of being informed enough to make a choice because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't intend to make a
And that's
choice.
why I was asking the question. I don't really know.
Can we redo the poll with just what 2 choices? The fit yes or no?
Oh, we can do that. Let's try that.
Just define what yes and no means, Marvin.
Yeah. So yes means that we can take this. We can take what Heath is saying. We can take that to vote because we understand enough about what we're trying to achieve, and it's clear to everyone. Negative means not quite sure. And I'd like some more information on this, or I'd like to dig into this a little bit deeper. Don't bother putting abstain. If you're abstaining, just don't bother responding to the poll.
Sorry,
Okay.
Mark, that would mean in turn that I'm sure and I'm voting this down.
Sorry, say that again.
So negative would mean I'm sure about this and I'm voting this down. I don't think it means I'm confused.
No. I'm just saying before we get to the vote. So this is a pre-vote, a precursor to the vote.
So negative is we're not ready to take this forward. Keep it deferred,
If
effectively.
Sanjeed, you are ready to vote and you will vote negative, you would join me. And right now we are affirmative, I can vote. And then if the vote opens up, we would then be negative.
Sorry, Daniel, just to ensure I'm ready to vote, I have a question, which is what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Have we come across any similar data type elements before? Is this the first time you're coming across an element with multiple data types in it?
It's the first one that we've raised that we want to say something specific about one of the choices. There's lots of elements that have multiple data type choices. Many of them we probably will never say something specific about. But in this case, there was thought that we did want to say something specific about one of the available choices.
How about I rephrase my question? Have we come across such scenario before, and how did we go about voting in such a scenario?
We
We have
bounced it.
deferred it.
Oh, then potentially even, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess we might get it again though when someone starts talking about numbers and how, how granular the number is. An integer good enough or a real number? And then we'll get into that.
And I will typically vote negative on all of those things generally, at least in this kind of framing. Either we're limiting the data types available, noting that this is AU Core. It's not about a specific use case. So we've got to be really, really careful about prohibition.
Okay, so maybe what we'll do then is, Heath, do you want to put a motion forward and maybe to do the block vote for all of them, and let's see where we land.
I'm not comfortable with the block vote because I think we need to consider each one at a time.
Okay.
I think if we can just stick, personally, I'd prefer to have this as a test to see if we're comfortable with procedure, because I think procedure is probably the easy one, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I find it difficult to see how things like period and range sort of apply. Certainly age and string and date time I see as valid options in the context of a procedure. So my proposal, I move that we add a must support on the perform date time with an obligation of should populate.
Okay, we've had a motion. Does anyone want to second that?
Yoni from AG. I'm happy to second that. I agree with that.
Thank you, Yoni. All right, I'll launch the poll. If you are unable to vote, please add that in the chat. We've got 76% voted. Just like to pop it over 80% if we can.
Didn't you ask people not to vote if they were going to be?
Oh no, this is the real vote though. We kind of scrapped that because we didn't get very far. All right, we've got 80%.
I didn't get a dialogue.
Oh, didn't you? Has everyone else got a dialogue?
Yeah, I had one.
We've got 33 people who have voted.
I got a dialogue too.
Okay, can I just be a +1 then?
Okay.
Maybe it's hidden behind my
So
plethora
you're
of windows.
+1 affirmative?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're going to end that poll now. And we had with Heath's +1, we got 19 affirmative. With Danielle's negative, we got 5 negative, 12 abstain. So that motion has carried, has passed.
Okay, so do you want to proceed with the others?
So I think we should probably proceed with the others then.
So the next one is onset date time. So very quickly, we've got condition, and we've got onset date time with a must support, populate if known, and the proposal is to have must support on onset date time with an obligation of should populate. So I shall move. I don't know if we want further discussion, but before we move.
I will note IPS doesn't do it for these. So IPS does set on performed procedure, but IPS doesn't here. So this would be something that comes into AU patient summary by virtue of this decision.
And that's good rationale for what are people's thoughts around that?
Say it again, Danielle.
Is this onset or is this abatement? Sorry.
This is onset.
Apologies, I thought we were doing abatement. I've got the order wrong. I was going to say IPS does put must support on onset date time, but it doesn't for abatement. It also doesn't have must support on abatement.
But this is IPS I'm showing. So it's able to populate. Interesting that they've gone for able to populate this time. But my proposal will be should populate.
Yes, and I take back my comment. It's about the other. There's another JIRA there that's about abatement, and I got the one we were talking about wrong.
Can you show again the difference in meaning between populate, able to populate, and populate if known?
Can, yeah. And good luck interpreting it, but
okay.
So that's conformant applications producing resources should be able to correctly populate this element. Typically, this means that an application needs to demonstrate during some conformance testing process that there are some conditions under which it populates the element with a correct value. So this is all about conformance processes. All right. So you need to be able to demonstrate whether you have the concept in your database or not, that you're able to populate this. And that was
right. So in a sense, it's weaker than populate if known.
No,
so
it's stronger.
Should be able to correctly populate this element.
And it's got nothing to do with, whereas if known, so if known is correctly populate the element if they know a value of the element, but it is acceptable, the system is unable to ever know a value. So that's the difference is between able to populate and populate if known is that you've got to demonstrate that you can populate it.
Yeah, I would have thought that if I've got a system which occasionally populates it for no real logic, then I can say I'm able to populate it. And if I've got a system that populates it every time I've got it, then I can pass populate if known. But if it only populates it sometimes when I know it, then I fail populate if known, but I do pass able to populate it.
So,
that's sort of the way I'd read those, which is sort of almost the opposite of what you've read,
yeah.
which, yuck.
Yeah, that's why I say good luck interpreting. But the key thing for me is that populate is actually inheriting from if known and able to populate. So if we, and that's why I talk about strengthening the obligation in the one aspect of it being going down the hierarchy. We're stronger because it's inheriting the principle that you've got able to populate in some circumstances, but at the same time, only if you know it. So it is very subtle and hard to distinguish. I completely admit.
Where I was looking too, though, is right at the end of your highlight where it says allowed to be shared. So the reason why it wasn't populated in the first place is you're not allowed to know that, right? So
potentially,
yeah, that's the scenario I guess my head was on.
Yeah. So for me, it's we want to, because at the top level, and when I say the top level, at the onset level, we've got if known, and we're going down that hierarchy down to populate, including the strength from the able to populate. So it's become stronger in that aspect, but on the other hand, it's only a should. It's a recommendation, not a mandate.
So populate if known, it's got the idea of you don't have to know it, but when you do know it, populate it.
Correct.
While populate says ignorance is not sufficient reason to fail to populate it. You only don't populate it when you're not allowed to.
Yep.
So populate means if you don't know the value to this, you can't be conformant. And populate if known says if you don't know, you can be conformant. And able to populate says as long as you could put a value in if you tried, you're okay.
Yep. In some circumstances, you can. You
Yeah,
got to demonstrate that
and
ability.
I know I've certainly worked on systems where they don't like a null value for a date, so they put in a standard date just to populate the field.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you at a position, Heath, where you'd like to make a motion for this one?
I would like to move that we add must support to onset date time with an obligation of should populate.
Is there a seconder?
Are you allowed to make motions, Heath? Or who's chairing?
I'm
Marvin's the
chairing.
chair.
Oh, you're sorry. I'll second that, Heath.
Okay, thank you, David. I will launch the poll. We've just tipped over 60% responders. I'd like to get up to 80% if we can. Affirmative if you agree, negative if you disagree, abstain if you're not sure, or just wish to abstain.
All right, apologies. In all the discussing the definitions, I lost track of what obligation we were saying we wanted to put on it. Was it?
Should populate.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we're almost at 75%. I'll give you just a few more moments and then we'll call it. Okay, we'll end the poll there. So with, let me just check the chat. Danielle, okay, so with that, we've got 17 affirmative, we've got 5 excuse me, negative, and 9 abstain, so that motion has passed. Okay, do you want to continue then, Heath?
I think I might skip the abatement one. And move on to allergy intolerance.
Okay.
So allergy intolerance is the same pattern. And we're talking onset date time. So again, I'll allow for some discussion, but ultimately I would like to move that there will be a must support on onset date time with an obligation of should populate.
So given this is pretty much the same as the previous ones, is there anything particular in this one that makes it any different that we need to discuss? Or are we fairly good with this one? And
do you want me to just check IPS very quickly?
Yep.
It's in IPS. You don't need to go to it. It's there.
Okay.
I think of allergy intolerance as being a type of condition. So I think there's good value in it being consistent with what's in condition.
So if there's no further discussion, I'd like to move that we add the must support with the obligation of should populate on onset allergy intolerance.
Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second that. Sorry, Yoni. AJ.
Thank you, Yoni. Okay, I'll launch the vote for the current proposal. Assuming you're a plus negative for this one as well, Danielle.
Thanks for the reminder. I just popped that in.
Thanks. Just a few more moments. I'm going to end the poll. So with that, we have 17 affirmative, 5 negative, and 6 abstain. So that motion has passed. So do you want to do your last one then, Heath?
I'm looking. Oh, yep, it is there. I was going to say I couldn't see it. It's a strange rendering. Okay, so immunization is the next one. So occurrence date time is currently shall populate if known. And we have a choice between occurrence date time and occurrence string. And I would like to recommend that we add a must support and a obligation of should populate on occurrence date time in immunization, and IPS has got a similar obligation. Whether it's the right one or not is a good question, but it is a should populate if known, which is a null statement at the moment because that's the same as above. Danielle.
There is a slightly different note to make here. Unlike the other resources, you can also record non-administration or patient refusal. So you might say between the period of here to here, they refused COVID vaccinations. So there are some known use cases where period is useful rather than just a choice of how well the system is implemented. So that's, I guess, I just wanted to raise that it's slightly different, I think, to the decisions we've been making or the reasons why we will have applied it.
There is no period is an option.
Isn't it?
For
In
no,
occurrence?
it's only the two. It's only string and
Oh, that would have been
datetime.
why it got used there. I must be thinking about the other resource then.
Yeah,
okay.
So datetime and string are the only options for immunization.
I must have been looking at some future validity thing of like R6 or something.
Maybe.
Okay, no worries. Then let's just ignore that.
Any other comments on this one? If not, we can move straight to the vote.
Okay, so I so move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Again, I'm happy to second that, Yoni.
Thanks, Yoni. So remember, if you are unable to vote or don't see the pop-up, you can add your +1 for negative, abstain, or affirmative in the chat. A few more moments. I think we've kind of thank you. We'll end the poll. And we have 17 votes affirmative, 5 votes negative, and 10 abstain. That motion has carried.
Okay, so I might just very quickly revisit the abatement date time. I'm not going to make a motion here, but I just want to give the opportunity to others to comment if they feel strongly about us adding must support on abatement date time. I think the argument from Danielle, which is that there's not even must support in IPS, is a good reason for us not to go down that route at this time. The rationale previously for the others was that it was in alignment with the IPS profiles, which was beneficial. So any comments on abatement, or we can move on? Okay.
Right, I'm sorry, looking for my mouse. So once again, you're saying abatement is different?
So abatement, it currently is must support in AU Core.
Yeah.
And we've got a choice of those 4 types: date, time, age, period, and range.
Yeah.
In IPS, there is no must support on abatement. So although in AU Core there is a populate if known requirement, I'm not feeling strong enough at this point in time to propose that we go down the route of abatement date time as must support should populate. And the need to do so from an IPS or a UPS perspective is not there. So that's why I'm happy to leave that as is at this time.
Understood. Thanks.
Unless that someone else wants to.
No, it's good
propose it.
rationale, you know, I guess, and I can't help but try and run through scenarios just to see when you might come up against it, but I guess that's good.
Okay. Does anyone feel strongly enough to want to push this to a vote, or are we comfortable leaving it? All right, with no comment, I think we'll call it there for that one. Thanks very much, Heath. Danielle, do you want to share screen?
Yeah, I do. Let me just find the page. I was opening up all sorts of other things to go investigate my support, and need to find the right tab because I have many. Aha, there it is. Righto, let me share screen. Now, I don't have the PowerPoint there, but there were, oh, that's a bit small. Let me make that bigger. We discussed briefly, would there be interest in AU Core R2 clarifying which parts of the ContactPoint data type, so that's like patient.telecom, PractitionerRole.telecom, etc., are actually must support. It's a complex data type, and right now we've just got it on the element, and we did want to make some decisions around that in AU Core. So the priority one, I think the one we were interested in really was patient. So I put forward the JIRA. The proposal is to put must support on telecom system, value, and use. If I go to the actual data type definition, so that's the full thing here. It has other things like rank, where you could say, oh, we like this one, use this one before something else. So there's quite a few things in there, but I don't think they are the minimum requirements for support for a patient's contact details. System is where you say this is a fax or an email or a URL. So, you know, obviously that helps differentiate from a technical sense and is really, really important. Value is the actual, like the phone number or the actual email address. And use is where you say things like this is home or this is mobile. And probably really quite importantly for patient, more than any of the other entities at a core level, are things like temp and old. We've talked about over, I think, the last couple of years, these particular cases for how do I say this is what someone used to be known as. And this is what you would use to do that. So that's why use is put forward, that we say these three, and they're also the three people popped in the chat last week, are the three that are being put forward for must support. So what that looks like, if that works, is we come down to our profile on telecom. It would now have system, value, and use as must support. It changes no terminology, changes no cardinality. And as we've just spent quite a bit of time discussing, we inherit the same obligations as the parent. So that's the proposal. And I would like to ask, are there any concerns with these three elements? Is there one that people think actually shouldn't be something that is part of the minimum support requirements that's supplied if known?
I was wondering about there's no dates associated with any of these numbers?
There can be. I don't think that's a minimum requirement in all use cases. You can supply a period. I think that's a use case specific specification to describe how that is being implemented for that workflow. But I mean, it doesn't prohibit it. What it says is it's
that's
not a
true.
minimum requirement. Yeah. Richard?
I want to clarify how the must support on the element works as opposed to when we've also got the must support on the children. So,
Sure. Let's go to
the
the
way
section.
this one works is must support on telecom means that if I say must support on telecom and I don't say anything else, then it applies to all parts of it.
Yes and no. We have a definition of what this means. Complex elements.
Right.
Here's what it means. So it means that one of requesters shall accept a resource without error if that element is present and contains any valid sub-element. It doesn't mean they have to process it. We've got that shall no error, right? That's the expectation for requesters. For responders, they shall correctly populate the element with at least one of the sub-element values. Contact point, that actually typically means system and value because it's really hard to correctly represent a electronic thing without actually going, this is phone or this is email in FHIR.
Right. So theoretically, I could have just populated it with a date, with a period and nothing else, and it would pass. But we've said, no, don't do something silly. You've got to send us some real information. Or
well,
so you have to support some real information.
Yeah, machine processing and syntactic validation only covers so far. These must supports and obligations are about those behavioral things. The things that are straight on the wire check won't be able to capture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. And so we're saying really our minimum requirement now for responders is that if you have it, we expect correct population falls into, let me go back, where you know it, supplying system value and use. There are no obligations on supplying periods. That might come from a downstream IG if you're like servicing a particular use case, might do that. But from a flat AU core perspective, these are the three.
A technique question. Would it be worth having a profile of ContactPoint, which says to be, we call the profile useful contact point or something or other like that. And so here, rather than explicitly saying this about telecom in this particular resource, we say of telecom, don't conform to contact point, conform to useful contact point, which has must support on system value and use.
There's two reasons I'm not proposing that. One, my other proposals aren't for these three elements, for these sub-elements. They're different. The other one is downstream usage. So when downstream IGs who will likely need to conform to core plus something else, and then you have these multiple profiles kind of conflicting in, it actually starts to obfuscate what's going on. I think we would likely migrate to profile usage as a really strong technique when the country is a lot more FHIR mature. I would advocate against doing it now. We've got some real things in AU patient summary where we're trying to bring in these multiple IG inheritance and trying to like match them up and it sounds simple, but at an AU core level, I would say that for now we avoid data type profiles, frankly.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Sorry, Marvin.
No, I was going to say if there are no other questions, Liam's.
Liam?
Sorry, a late question, but I was just wondering, trying to think of other use cases where you may not want to use the codes in use. Like there might be a use case that requires I don't know, something that you can't represent in that set of use codes.
So
then you will be invalid FHIR.
Yeah, you have to use other.
Something that's valid.
You use other because it's a required binding. And there's actually some text in the data types that talks about using URLs so that you can actually articulate, like there's an ITU standard around representing things like contacts and stuff like that, which are effectively URL based, and then you use like a scheme at the beginning of that URL to indicate what type of contact this is and all that sort of stuff. So the recommendation in Fire is to use other.
It is not allowed. There is no code for other for use.
Well,
for
then
talking to use.
I guess what you could
What
do
we're
base
talking is
profile
system.
text is wrong then.
System is other. Use doesn't
Yes.
allow it, but regardless, you must be valid Fire.
Yep.
Like that's what we're talking about is Fire profiles. So if you will have to, which this proposal isn't touching. This proposal is putting must support on existing elements.
So I
I
guess
think
in
maybe
that
you're
case,
asking a separate question
so
on
maybe
for
in
my
that
specific
case,
use case, how do I do a valid Fire entry for ContactPoint? Could you actually could we get that on the agenda for next meeting? And we could take some time to like propose that and talk through it? Because it's not this particular, I don't think.
yeah, and
this
maybe my
particular topic.
circumstance, you would just omit use, like you just wouldn't include it.
You could omit use and you could
True.
have an extension which includes values like my neighbors or something or other
That's
like
what I was
that.
thinking, like friend or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, friend or relationship or things like that. That's not Fire's. I know it says identify the purpose for ContactPoint. I think it's an interesting question. AU-Base has considered it in the past, and that's where we'd need to solve it. But let's bring it to our next meeting because it's about an enhancement on the ability to capture some scenarios that aren't obvious in the Fire data type. But we've got to do some prep work for that.
Yeah. I also think we had the same problem in HL7 with telephone numbers and machine codes and use codes and all that sort of stuff. But even with the list we have here, to me, it's a conflict, it's conflating concepts and it's not necessarily contemporary anymore. Who has a home phone number, a home phone number anymore? Very few people. Work and mobile. Are they the same sort of meaning? Not really.
The one that gets me is emails.
And we have the same thing when you're doing UI development. You've got 3 fields put on: home, work, mobile.
So can I ask?
99 times out of 100, they'll put the mobile in the home phone number as well as in the mobile number.
Could you put a number of the points around what I think are really common cases you're seeing, but that just aren't working within the data type in an email? And Liam, can I get you to do the same? And we can, I think, bring those into our next call.
So is what I'm hearing, Danielle, a slight modification to your proposal in that we just do system and value?
I don't think it is, because the thing that Liam was concerned about was actually system.
Was it? Okay, I thought it was use.
It was more just, being able to support a different kind of use, but if it wasn't captured in the required set, then you would just omit it. So I think that's fine.
Yeah, and what we've seen over time is that the home has changed to contact. This is that you want to contact me, use this number, and so it doesn't matter wherever I am. That's what I've seen in industry happen.
Yeah, it's personal. You want to contact me? Here's how. What I'm using, the number could be any type of number.
Yeah, yeah. We stayed away from personal
or email. Huh?
Yeah, no, we stayed away from personal because it sounded a bit personal, and yeah.
So is raising that, is the proposal telecom and value? Oh, sorry, system and value, not telecom and value. System and value. That there is no requirement to populate use if you have it, or that you need to do something with use if it's supplied. Because we're saying it's
well, I think
we don't expect people to be populating this in the first place, and we don't want them to.
For phone, I think it's very common in systems to have at least three phone numbers. So I think in the context of a phone system, we do need use. And so I think probably the easiest way to represent that is to have populate if known on all three.
Okay.
Yeah, if we get rigorous, then we're into landlines and mobile systems, right?
So the question is, if I say phone and I say home and I put a value in a mobile number in the value, and I do exactly the same if I use mobile for use, how am I meant to interpret any of that? Is it different or the same?
AU Core doesn't deal with that at all.
Yeah, but if you've got a screen with 3 fields on it, and you've got work, home, and mobile, and someone puts mobile phone number in all 3 fields, it comes out with 3 occurrences of this with mobile in all 3 fields. And I think that's valid.
It is valid, yes. That's how some systems.
This is how I want to be contacted for work. This is how I want to be contacted for home. This is how I want to be contacted on my mobile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit legacy. I get what you're saying.
Home and mobile and work are not the same sort of concept, right?
Yeah, I think FHIR is not kind of trying to mandate what that is for that particular application. It's just providing the mechanism to
I just sort of think it's no longer really contemporary in our modern world, basically.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and we know
I think that'll catch up.
Well, AS 4590, right? We worked on that one, and that definitely has this covered.
All right, so we've got 5 minutes left, so I think maybe we'd try and close this one out.
Right. I'll motion then. I motion that we add must support to patient telecom system, patient telecom value, and patient telecom use.
My apologies. That was me. Press the wrong button. It was next to Paul. Do I have a second?
I'm happy to second. Landon Riley.
Thanks, Landon. Okay.
For the minutes, can we ask the person who voted negative to provide the rationale?
We've got 2 people who voted negative.
Yep. Because mostly I heard issues with the code system, not that we wouldn't want to supply the values or that element.
So the 2 people that voted negative, do you want to let us know why you did?
Well, I would say it's partly related to the code values. I couldn't necessarily validly supply the right code value. So how could I support it?
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I was also negative. My concern was the shall and just being a facade, being a sham. It can be hard sometimes for us to ensure, particularly use. We've had to make some interesting guesses before on what should be in there because we don't own the data. We're just interpreting it.
It's if known. So if you don't have a value, you don't need to provide one.
It's we get into a gray area around implications, and it might not be explicitly in the database, but it might be implied, and it's just a little bit tricky for us. So
okay, I will end the poll there and share the results. So we have with the +1 from Danielle, we have 22 affirmative, 2 negative, and 9 have abstained. So that motion has passed. All right, I think we're going to have to hold the other items over for the next meeting. Let's.
Just a question. Can we do some stuff out of meetings? Like maybe as e-votes or something? Like, I'm thinking about the one that you've probably got coming up. It's very similar with sorry, maybe not.
The one on practitioner role.
Yeah. Now that we've had this discussion, can we do an e-vote on these just to move things through?
I'm happy to send it out for an e-vote. Are there any concerns with people if I put forward each of the JIRAs on putting mass support on the other 2 telecom proposals out for electronic vote to the community. And if you do find something that you want to talk about, obviously you vote refer to telecom, and then we bring it back and talk about it. So I'm happy to do that.
You did say it's different. The proposal are different for these other 2.
Yes, I hadn't put use in.
Right.
Because the use cases for which that have been discussed, the use of use for like old or temp in support of a patient as they're moving through environments, or if they don't have stable housing, doesn't apply in a practitioner role or organization sense. So that wasn't proposed. But if someone wants to raise that, then they can raise that when I put it out for electronic vote. I think, yeah, sure, why not? Are there any objections to putting it out as an e-vote?
Doesn't sound like there are.
All right, I'll do that.
I will do that. Okay, so in the next meeting, we'll go over some additional JIRAs. Liam, we didn't get to yours, unfortunately, so hopefully we can do that for the next session. We will not get the opportunity to go through the testing scenarios in this week's call. Apologies, Steve. So just to close out, that we have Spark testing event on the 24th. Please, if you've got anything that needs to come back into R2 that we need to close out, make sure you get those through to us as soon as possible. Our next meeting is on the 26th of June. We'll report back on any of the e-votes that we've done we'll put out, and also finalize the JIRAs. If there's anything else that needs to be put on the agenda, then let us know. I will point out, please review our vision statement and charter and provide any change proposals if necessary. So we're going through that review by the end of June. So if you've got anything, bring those to our attention, and we will try and raise those at the next session. And the other thing is just a reminder to keep looking at Zulip. If you're not a member, if you've not got a login for Zulip, then please do that. There's a lot of stuff going on, information about the testing events, other questions that people have raised, and so on. So it's just a quick reminder to, if you're not already signed up for Zulip, then make sure you do that as well. And with that, I think we've come to the end of the session. Thank you very much for a very productive session. A lot of interesting discussion. Thanks very much.
Guys. Gals.
Good job, Marvin. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.